It's Valentine's Day coming up, or maybe it's Valentine's Day when I post this video, I'm not sure. But I thought it would be fun to do the first date book tag. This tag was originally created by Katie over at Kate's Book Date. I will leave the link to her original video down in the description bar below, so go check that out. But let's just get into the questions. Oh, also, any reviews that I have for any of the books that I mentioned will be linked down in the description bar below. Question number 1. The Awkward First Date. A book where something felt off. It wasn't a bad book, but something lacked that spark for you. Joyland by Stephen King. I picked that book up. I think that was the first Stephen King book that I picked up because I thought I was going to really like it, because one, it was more young adult than all of his other books, and two, it was about a carnival and it was pitched as kind of like a ghost story coming of age type thing. But yeah, it wasn't as, it just, something about it just felt underwhelming for me. By the way, if I'm looking down a lot, it's because I'm reading the questions on my laptop and I don't have my glasses, so I have to really stare into the screen. Question 2. The Cheap First Date. A book that turned out less than you expected. For this one, I'm gonna go with Say Her Name by Juno Dawson. I was expecting a really fun, cheesy, ghost haunted story, and I did get the cheesiness of it, but the ghosty part wasn't as good as I would have expected. Question 3. Well Prepared First Date. A book that was better than expected. For this one, I'm definitely going to go with P.S. I Like You by Casey West. I went into this book thinking that it was going to be cheesy and like a contemporary romance that's like super cheesy and super like young adult, and although I did get a lot of the romance and the plot is basically about the romance, I felt like the characters had a lot more depth than what I would have expected, and there is a lot to do with family within this book as well, like as a subplot, so I really enjoyed this one. Question 4. Hot but Dumb. A pretty book but not so hot on the inside. I'm gonna go with a very beloved series here on BookTube, and that would be the Inferno Devices. I read a lot of Cassandra Clare books within the past 2 years, and I have to say I really like the Mortal Instruments better, because I just think she had a lot more room to grow when writing that series, and so I appreciate that series more. Also, I think a lot of people just hyped up the TID series more for me, and so when I went into it, I was super underwhelmed, which kind of sucks because I really love the new covers of the TID books. But yeah, the story itself, not so great. Question 5. The Blind Date. A book you picked up not knowing anything about it. I'm going with my favorite book of all time, I Captured the Castle by Dodie Smith. This book I went into blind because I was looking for a classic book to read, because I was like in the mood for one, and I kind of heard people mention this book here and there, but I've never seen any review of it. Just like with a lot of classics, I think people don't really talk about the plot because the plot isn't the main focus. I think it's more the writing style and kind of the analysis of it, I guess. But yeah, so I picked this up not knowing anything about it, and I absolutely love it. This is one of my favorite books of all time. Question 6. Speed Dating. A book you read super fast. I'm going with The Companions of the Night by Vivian Van Velde for this. I read this in one night, which is something I never do with books. Although this is a pretty short book, but it's one of my favorite vampire novels, I guess. It's not very romancy, vampire-y, but there is a lot of action in this, and I think it's one of the best vampire novels out there. I do have to say this was written before Twilight, so that's probably why it's pretty good. The Rebound. A book you read too soon after a book hangover, and it kind of ruined the book for you. Okay, so I'm really disappointed that I read this super quickly because I think I would have enjoyed it a lot more than I did. But the book that I'm going to mention is A Monster Calls by Patrick Ness, and I know that that's like a lot of people's favorite books, and when I read it, I was reading it during a readathon actually, and I had just finished another book that I fell super in love with, so when I went into A Monster Calls, I was still thinking about the previous book, and I didn't really give A Monster Calls the chance that it deserved. Yeah, again, it's kind of underwhelming, and I think that's partly my fault. Question 8. Overly enthusiastic date. A book that felt like it was trying too hard. The A Court of Thorns and Roses series. I read the first one and then I tried to read the second one, and I just don't like either of them. I think I just don't like Sarah J Maas's writing style. I know that she's a lot of people's favorite authors, but I just felt like her writing style is just trying too hard for me. And the other book that I want to mention is one that I thought that I would love, but I actually didn't, and that book is Splintered by A.G. Howard. I think this is a Alice in Wonderland retelling of some sort. I thought I was going to really like it because it seemed like a lot of fun. The cover is really pretty, but again, trying too hard. I think I've learned my lesson. Pretty covers tend to not be pretty stories. Question 9. The Perfect Date. A book that did everything right for you. This one is actually the book that I read before A Monster Calls, and it's again one of my favorite books of all time. It's This Is Not a Test by Courtney Summers. This is essentially a zombie book, but it's also not a zombie book. It's more of a mental health book, and it's beautifully written. Everything about the pacing and the plot and the side characters and the character development was just well done for me. This is the book that I wish I had written, basically. And the last question is The Humiliating First Date. A book that you're embarrassed to admit you like. I've actually been on a couple of humiliating dates, but the book that I want to mention, I actually have a physical copy of. I'm just not sure where I put it. That book is Nevermore by Kelly Craig. Don't know how to say her last name. This is a paranormal romancy type book. It's actually a lot better than the cover makes it out to be. But yeah, the cover is super cheesy and very mid-2000s. So yeah, anyway, those were all the questions. I'm going to tag Bri Reads Books. Is it Bri or Bri? Sorry if I pronounced your name wrong. Chelsea Chapters, Books and Lala, and I Livy for Books to do this tag. So I am excited to see your answers for these questions. And yeah, I hope you're having a great day. Happy Valentine's Day, and I will see you soon.